Hey, YouTube. Hey, we're back. We're back.
Hoi hoi.
And me, personally, I'm just getting back from Barbados. Spent a week there.
Oh, you lucky bastard laying in the sun there. Oh, man. We don't want to hear any vacation stories.
And I don't want to hear, I didn't want to come back, but unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, yeah, it's tough out there, isn't it? Yeah.
It certainly is, certainly is. And, well, hey, guys, and we're back for our latest episode.
Yes. Well, so you're busy laying in the sun. We were still busy acquiring books, and we'll be featuring some of our recent pickups in this episode.
We will. But just before we get started, because normally we do some kind of opening segment, and we're not going to do that tonight. So I thought I'd start with just a little bit of nerd news. Certain things that I feel great about, it interests me. Whether it interests you or not, I don't know. But
pray tell, what are we referring to?
Well, first thing is in Florida in January. One of my dream cars went up for auction in Florida.
Oh, a dream car?
The original Christine, the 1958 Plymouth from Christine.
The Plymouth Fury 58.
Went on the auction block, and I don't know the exact price it brought in, but the bidding started at $500,000, so $500,000. God, I wish I had some money.
Yeah, but you know, like 90% of that price is because it was the car used in that iconic Stephen King movie. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not a car guy, but I don't know that there's that high of a market value for like mid-50s.
Not a 58 Plymouth
Furies, you know.
But this was the Christine car. Now,
yeah, and that's what that price is all about.
It could also be, I'm not sure, but there's not a lot of those cars around.
Well, there isn't, but to be clear, now there was more than one Christine car used in the film, so this is one of the cars, but it's got the papers, so again, I wish I had the money to get something like that, but unfortunately, I'm just a small guy in a small world.
I hear ya.
And the one other car went up for auction last month as well. The original Mustang from Bullitt. That's the '68 Mustang.
That's an iconic. There are a lot of Steve McQueen fans, and that is one of the definitive movies. So, that car, I'm sure that brought big bucks.
You want to take a guess?
$1 million.
Higher.
A couple of million.
$3.75 million.
Yeah.
I think it's the most expensive.
I think it's the most expensive piece of movie memorabilia ever sold.
Wow.
Mustang.
Yeah. Wow. Well over $3 million. Yeah. Well, that's a surprising number, but in a way, not surprising. I mean.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people with a lot of money out there, and $3 million is not a lot of money for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not one of them. Yeah. And the final bit of nerd news, in case anybody's interested, Fan Expo just announced that Michael Bay is showing up at the Fan Expo this year. I'm a big fan. I have the Aliens poster, and I also have a press kit from Aliens or from The Abyss, so I'm thinking of getting him to sign one or the other.
Okay, Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn, yeah, sorry. I heard Michael Bay. Yeah, no, sorry, Michael Biehn. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong.
Yeah, from Terminator and from Aliens 2, you know that guy. I recently saw him again in The Seventh Sign with Debbie Moore.
Yeah,
I mean, he was one of those guys that was around for a few years. He had his 15 minutes.
Big 15 minutes, are you kidding me?
Okay, so he had an hour or two.
Aliens, Terminator, The Abyss. Those are three of the biggest movies of the 80s.
Made within a few years of each other.
He was James Cameron's boy at one time.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get back to what we're doing here. We got a great episode for you tonight. And as usual, we're going to start with a new comic book segment. Am I correct?
Yeah, new comic book segment. This is a 90s retro edition. We're featuring a couple of number 2 issues from the dear old dead 90s. Mm-hmm. So we'll start up with this first one here. This is Black Widow, Marvel Knights, Volume 1, issue number 2 from back of July of 99. Mm-hmm. Millennium year there. So by now, I think we all know that the infamous Red Room will be featured in the new Black Widow movie. And while the Red Room mentioned by Yelena Belova during her encounter with Natasha Romanoff in this issue number 1 of that first miniseries, we did not really get our first look at it until this issue number 2. Mm-hmm. Now, if that indeed, of course, is the quote-unquote room, to me, it's kind of unclear if this is the Red Room or just a Red Room, if you know what I'm saying, that shows up in a few panels.
Yeah.
Now, issues 1 and 2 from this series have popped a bit recently with the release of the trailer back in early December of 2019. But I found this copy at DecemberCon, so they're out there. Just don't overpay like I did. You know, I paid $25, which is a little under 20 bucks Canadian. Now, in the subsequent Black Widow Volume 3 miniseries, we get flashes of what could be the Red Room Academy, which is more in line with what I expect for them to explore in the upcoming movie. Raw copies of this book are dropping for $5 to $10 US online on eBay, while a slab 9.8 copy you could have for about 40 to 50 bucks US. Yeah, cool cover. So the second book here from the 90s, the issue number 2, we're going to be featuring X-Force issue number 2. This is back from September of 1991, and it features the second appearance of none other than Deadpool, as the first appearance of Kane, and the first appearance of Department K.
Yeah.
So let's see now. New Mutants issue 98, first Deadpool CGC graded 9.8 copies are fetching about, give or take, $700 US on average these days. But there's a staggering 2,956 copies graded at the 9.8 Universal Blue Grade alone.
Yeah.
What's more, there's also a dozen full mint 9.9 copies, as well as a gem mint 10.0 of this book. Yeah, but of course, I'm digressing. Getting back to this book, X-Force number 2, of course, features the second appearance of Deadpool. So what's up with X-Force number 2? The Overstreet price guide gives it a value of only 20 bucks US at the 9.2 grade. I find it odd that the first appearance has such market demand, while the second comic itself gets no interest at all in the marketplace. The comic features a solid Lee-Field cover that prominently, features Deadpool. And this book really is a must, I would think, for Deadpool fans, as well as for modern era comic collectors as well. Oh, I think I get it. It's a Rob Liefeld book. Yeah, still people's view of an artist can't really take away from the fact that it is a prominent character's second appearance. But bottom line, at the end of the day, basically rarity does count for something in the collectibles world. And if X-Force issue number 1 apparently sold well over 1 million copies, it would stand to reason that this issue, X-Force number 2, sold a heck of a lot of copies too. Yeah, this book, of course, was released during the height of the speculation era, where everyone collected to collect. And just like finding a warehouse stash of a rare book can bring the price down, I obviously believe that there are still warehouses where there are still being stored of this issue right here.
Books, yeah.
Just way too many. 49th edition of the Overstreet price guide shows $11, $16, and $20 US as the prices for the 8.99.2 grade splits. And if you're looking to get a slab 9.8 copy, they're dropping for a $50 bill US these days. It's interesting. This pickup, I picked it up in December. It was a bundle deal of about, 20 books that I paid $100 for from a couple of book flippers that were at the time, that they're, just talking with that Retro Rare with Sandy. Now, they were just 20 modern books. They included a couple of copies of Amazing Spider-Man 332, which has a cool Venom cover, and 9.2 copies of that are selling for 14 bucks US. It also had a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 360. It's got a Carnage cameo, and a first appearance of Cardiac. 9.2 copy of that book was $16 US. For believe it or not, it had 5 mint-looking copies of Venom: The Madness issue number 1 miniseries, which an embossed Juggernaut cover. That's $4, $5 each copy of those at a 9T grade. Several interesting copies of What If, last issues of Marvel Team Up issue 150, and Mike Grell's Warlord issue 133. So about 20 books that fair market value is a couple $100 I picked up for basically $100, or about $4 and change a book. So that's what I'm into this book for.
Yeah.
Which, people buying, 5 and 10 copies back in the day, thinking that they might have something for their retirement or for their kids' education. You're not really sitting on much at all. But,
well, it's a second appearance of Deadpool, so who knows what's going to happen next.
And like I said, I like to call my unofficial nickname Mr. Second Appearance. I pick up second appearances all the time.
No doubt, nothing wrong with that. Well, those are spectacular books, Jose, and again, they're not going to cost you an arm and a leg, so if you see them, you got to grab them.
See them, buy them, but buy them at a good price.
How about you, Mike? You got them?
No, I don't.
But you will, eventually. Am I right?
Possibly.
Okay, Jose, that's a great way to start. Thanks for bringing him in.
Boy, boy.
Hey, Mike, you know, by showing this book, you're kind of dating yourself. What do you think? You think?
Okay.
Back in the day, you know, Vinnie Barbarino, he was one cool dude, man. And this is at the beginning of John Travolta's career. This
sure.
is basically the show that got him noticed in Hollywood,
In
and
Hollywood,
that
absolutely.
basically got him making movies like Grease, and you know, the rest is history. But you know, again, a cool pop culture artifact. I mean, I watched the show back in the day. I'm not ashamed or proud to say that.
Oh,
It's just a statement of fact. I
was
did.
I was just gonna say it's our new book segment for anyone who is
Under the age of
under
40?
The age of 40, basically, because that's exactly it.
Yeah, anyone who's a
I did
millennial
not
will not
even
recognize
know.
this book at all, and it'll mean nothing to them.
Exactly. I did not even know this even was a comic book. I was going through BMV, and I came across this, and it just immediately made me laugh.
Yeah.
And
It's a
for
number one
third-
issue. What's the date on this? 70 what?
This is 1976.
Yeah, this, you know,
For the less than the price of a new
New book.
There you go.
You know, this-
For Wooger there, who cares?
yeah, this is them at that time, right before the implosion, as I call it, like a lot of historians say,
Yeah.
where basically they were getting their lunch eaten by Marvel at the time, and basically they were just trying to put out anything. The idea was to put out titles, you know, throw as many things to the wall, see what would stick. And this is them licensing a property that was popular back in the day. And like I said, I'm sure the thing didn't run that many issues. So I mean, but you know what? It's cool having a number one issue. Number one issues will always be collectible. I think what limits the growth potential, something like that, it's only going to appeal to a very certain segment of a demographic, to people within a certain age. Because yeah, for other people who are collectors, it's not going to mean anything. Therefore, it's not going to have that market demand for it. But for a cool book that looks, I mean, other than that kind of Wooger, that, you know, green kind of thing at the top, it looks like a near mintage book otherwise. So good pickup. And you said you picked it up for how much?
Oh God, it was like $375.
So basically, you picked it up for less than a new
For nothing,
book.
yeah.
So I mean, you cannot get a better deal than that.
Yeah.
I can't say any more on that
And-
subject.
Oh, if you're into first appearances, it's the first appearance of absolutely everyone.
Of course,
on the
as
television show.
would a first issue, yeah.
If
yeah.
you've ever seen the television,
Yeah.
and the thing is, of course, because it's so cheap. I
Vinny,
read this,
Horshack, Mr.
and
Kata,
it
they're all there.
It reads
Oh.
exactly like watching the TV show. It was killer. It was great fun.
And you read the book, and yeah, it was.
I read it absolutely, absolutely love it.
And as we all know, everybody in the comic book community is looking for the first appearance of Vinnie Barbarino.
Yeah, man. Didn't you get the notice, man? You didn't get the memo? Come on.
Would.
But it is a great book. It's got that nostalgia factory, although, you know,
Well,
obviously.
we all show books from TV shows from our time, from our, Buck Rogers from the last
Hey, in a recent episode, yeah,
yeah.
Buck Rogers, yeah, sure, man.
My kind of timeline as well. Like, this is a show I watched when I was a kid.
We all
Why
did.
didn't- why
It was
not?
cool.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, for $3, I would have picked it up too, Mike, for sure. Guaranteed. Yeah.
Right on.
Nice pickup.
Okay, before I start talking about this book, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Retro Rare. We were there a couple of weeks ago where Sandy got in this most spectacular collection of gold, silver, and bronze age books. Some of the most beautiful and some of the most high-grade books we've seen in a long time.
Nice intro, because I think I'm going to be featuring a couple of those old Golden
Yeah.
Age pickups.
So, I mean, again, we go to Retro every weekend. But every once in a while, he just gets in a collection that's so far above and beyond what we're used to seeing there. You're blown away. You're breathless when you see some of these books.
I think the point we're trying to make here, like everything else in life, timing does matter. It is important. Being regulars, being there on a regular basis, it's going to get a lead in other words, a first peek at any new incoming new stock. And we were right there to pounce on this stuff. And this is a cool book. I know it very well. I
Yeah.
own a full 9.4 near make copy of this
Yeah.
sucker.
And it's on my want list.
And because I was kind of on a budget, I couldn't buy any of these high-end books. And believe me, he had a lot of them. But what he did have, and we're not going to spend too much time on this because Jose's shown it before, but obviously this is Adventure Comics number 428, and it's about a mid-grade copy. And of course, as
It presents better. I would think it looks like at least like around a 6.57, something along those lines.
somewhere along those lines, and it's obviously the first appearance of the Black Orchid.
Yeah, and it's got a wonderful cover by Bob Oxner. He drew the ladies fine. He did a lot of work for like Lois Lane, did some Wonder Woman covers. As you can see there, I won't comment on the costume. If you want to go back in the archive and read my comments on the costume, you're welcome to read that. But overall, so it's a very cool cover.
Very presentable book. I disagree with Jose. I kind of like her costume, but that's just me.
What did I describe her? Like a demented trapeze artist from Cirque du Soleil or something like that? Yeah.
Well, it kinda
Something
looks
like
a
that,
kid
yeah.
Something
putting
along, something
Yeah.
you guys can always go back to the episode
Yeah.
and check out my comments when I picked up this book.
a kid
Yeah.
putting a sheet on their and thinking they can
But it
fly.
is a very cool cover. I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of Osner's best covers. Yeah.
Now, in the slab high grade, by high grade, I mean between a 9.4 area there.
You're talking 400,
$400 or
450.
$500. Now,
Yeah.
this one, Sandy sold me for $50. It's a mid grade. You can see it's got some spine roll there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a bad copy.
I picked mine up for less than that from Big B Hamilton, and I think it was either a Fan Expo or a Toronto
Yeah, when you
Comic Con.
picked it up like 4
Years
years ago
earlier,
when it was
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
before
I discovered it because it was one of those last kind of undiscovered key books from the Bronze Age that hadn't
Mm-hmm.
really popped yet. I think making comments of that nature at the time I picked it up and thought, okay, there was no really heat on this kind of character at the
Yeah.
time, and there still really isn't. But it's a character and a property that's just waiting to be developed.
Yeah. So I couldn't afford any of Sandy's big boy books there, but I could afford this, so I walked out with this one, and I'm very happy.
I agree. I concur on that pickup. I own it myself.
Okay, next up we got Jose, high-end Jose, and he's kicking it up a notch with a really nice copy of Detective Comics number 300. You can't see the number there. You got the price. You should remove the price tag every once in a while. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, Detective 300 from February of 1962, containing the first appearance of none other than the bizarre Polka Dot Man.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's great anticipation for James Gunn's take on the DC Suicide Squad movie. Now, while it's still unclear if Gunn's movie will be a total reboot and relaunch or a straight up sequel, we do know a few things about the cast and the villains that will be used. So, among the more obscure members who have been confirmed thus far for the new Suicide Squad is the old Batman foe, Polka Dot Man, who will be played by American actor David Dastmalchian. Polka Dot Man is a character who makes perfect sense for a James Gunn movie. When it comes to quirky villains, DC has a surplus, and that appears to be what Gunn is after in Suicide Squad. Leaning away from the serious, as is his staple, his vision of Suicide Squad appears to be centered on over-the-top cartoonish characters. That's what makes Polka Dot Man a perfect fit. I'll go so far as to claim that he could end up, becoming the hero or the star of the show. As we've seen in Guardians of the Galaxy, Gunn loves taking obscure oddball characters and just having fun with them. That's exactly what I see happening with Polka Dot Man. Bill Finger and Sheldon Moldoff are the creative team behind the Silver Edge Tech 300 that introduces the Polka Dot Man.
Nice.
Yeah, Abner Krill, aka Mr. Polka Dot, as he's also known, is a straight out of the Silver Age. In fact, I think he's a villain who would have fit in perfectly on the old Adam West Batman TV show. Now, his gimmick, a polka dot suit with removable dots that can become various tools and allows him to commit polka dot themed crimes, is, on the face of it, ridiculous. But who am I to say? It was camp of the time. Now, in the original comics, he also traveled, as you can see on the cover here, on a flying polka dot or in a floating bubble, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
Now, with over 50 copies already and climbing on the CGC census, this issue was an obscure minor tech key until the movie announcement. The 47th Overstreet Price Guide, for example, has a 9.0 VF near mint copy at a value of this issue at $207 back in 2017, 2018. And that doesn't even mention that it's the first appearance of Polka Dot Man. Today, a slab 8.5 copy can sell for between $170 and $270 US on average. Now, that's been the most actively sold grade of this book recently, but until we really get a movie trailer to see what they do with the character, it's only slowly gaining attention. So, I guess bottom lining it, given the stature of the character, yeah, is this first appearance one to snag? Well, you know, like, you have to keep in mind, Polka Dot Man is currently dead in this DC Comics continuity. Yeah, that's how popular he was.
I was going to say, I can't imagine why.
Yeah, now, if you already have a copy, now would be a good time to think about selling. Better yet, if you have the patience, wait for the trailer to drop and then sell. It may take a while, however, as the Suicide Squad movie is still in pre-production and only scheduled for an August 2021 release at the very earliest. Yeah, 49th Overstreet price breaks for this book are $45, $100, $220, and $340 US in the 6, 8, 9, and 9.2 grade splits. It's a solid lower grade copy. I would say about a 5, maybe a 5.5 press. I picked that up from the Big P Pendragon Comics during their Boxing Day moving sale, 30% off. So, you know, I picked it up for a little under, you know, $30 Canadian, $28 if you want to be precise. So, you know, a good price, really, a point for that thing. You know, obviously, what I want to mention that after over 30 years on their Lakeshore location there by Lake Ontario, Pendragon is finally moving. They're moving to Cloverdale Mall. So, you know what? It's one of the last books I picked up from them at that location.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
I was going to say that kind of a shame. And as you can see by the footage here, we've actually never got to shoot inside Pendragon before. You can see the entire interior of the store finally. And it is kind of a sad time because this store has been an institution. It has been there on Lakeshore for, 30, 40 years, something like that.
32, 33 years.
Yeah.
In any case, so that's my D Silver Age book. The next book that we have here is Fantastic Four, issue number 55 from October of 1966. Yeah, everything these days, so Silver Surfer-wise, is just coming up golden. Yeah. Prices for his keys have been getting loftier and loftier by the month. And we're not even talking about his major appearances either. This issue, Fantastic Four 55, marks the 4th overall appearance of the Surfer, and it's his 3rd cover appearances. What makes this issue, however, special is that it pits him against the Fantastic Four's powerhouse, the Thing. You gotta remember that back in the 60s, this Thing was extremely popular. So having him go toe-to-toe with an exciting new character was bound to sell comic books. Now, ever since Disney finalized the purchase of Fox from Rupert Murdoch, fans have been awaiting the word on when the Fantastic Four will be joining the MCU. This issue has always been a popular one among Surfer fans, but it's ascended past that niche kind of audience, and it's really kind of popped. Granted, relatively speaking, it's still comparatively cheap when you compare it to the likes of, for example, Fantastic Four 48 or Silver Surfer issue number 1, but its value, it's getting steeper. In early December 2019, a graded 5.5 copy sold for basically over just under $100 when it was a $50 comic a couple of years ago. I judge my copy to be kind of like a low mid-grade copy, maybe a 5.5 in condition. Yeah, since November 2019, values have been on the rise. For instance, a graded 9.0 copy sold for $300 US, basically having been in the $250 range, it seems, for years. Yeah. Now, the 49th Overstreet price breaks for this book are $72, $168, $372, and $575 US in the 6, 8, 9, and 9.2 grade splits.
Yeah, that's a fantastic book, Jose. And with respect to what you said about the Fantastic Four entering the MCU, it's kind of a shame. It's just The Fantastic Four is one of those intellectual properties that so far Hollywood really hasn't been able to do justice.
But you got to give it to the House of the Mouse, and now it's back in their hands, and I think they're going to take their time, and they're going to do a very good job, so that it'll make people forget about all those very forgettable movies that have been released.
One would hope. One would hope.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Like I said, there's hope springs eternal, but like I said, it's a Disney property, and they don't take their properties lightly. Fantastic Four is a key property. It is a crown jewel, so I'm sure they're going to take their time and put some hopefully good people in there to write a good story, so we can finally see them as they should be on this big screen.
Oh, just for the record, the second film with the Silver Surfer, I didn't mind it.
It wasn't bad, but again, it was nothing memorable. So that's the main problem.
Yeah.
Got 800 books worth of stories.
Yeah, you think they come up with a
right.
good one.
Yeah,
I know.
you
And like I
think.
said, Galactus is somehow going to be introduced, so what better way than in the Fantastic Four? And where you have Galactus, you're going to have the Surfer.
Anyways, Jose, that's a fantastic book, and you're putting me to shame. That's for sure. I'm jealous. I'm very, very jealous. And next up, we got Big Mikey. And Big Mike, and since Jose showed 55, how appropriate is it that... and did you even know he was bringing over 55
I
tonight?
did not know.
So this is a
brought
fluke.
This over.
Yeah, nice
Just a
serendipity
fluke.
here.
Yeah. So I
And
thought,
Mike's showing number 56.
let me go next because it's like a little bit of a run. Why not?
It makes sense. Makes sense. Fantastic.
And that arch nemesis of the Black Panther, this is my opinion, his best cover. Of course, we're talking about The Claw. What a fantastic cover.
The claw.
Absolutely. And you know, again, little tiny hammer, little tiny chip, just chipping away at my run, trying to avoid the really big books.
We can't avoid him forever.
Can't avoid them forever, so now I'm kind of getting stuck because now my list is getting smaller and now it's just the biggies, and I'm looking at those prices and going,
So where'd you
But-
get this from?
Oh, this would have probably have been one of the Toronto comic book shows, probably the last one, maybe the one prior to that, I'm not sure. I've had this book sitting for a couple months anyway, meaning to bring it out, but you know, we're edited for time and whatnot. So just thought I'd bring it out.
It's an early Claw appearance, isn't it?
I believe so. I don't have any real.
I'm not saying it's a
detail
first
on
or
it.
even second appearance, but it is an early Claw appearance.
I'll do a bit of research, and if there's anything significant about the book, I'll put it on the
Other
side.
than that just spectacular Kirby cover, I mean,
I mean, it's November '66. This is really, literally, well, it's the issue after, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, I give this a VG to fine.
5? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
about a
mid grade
5.
for sure. Yeah.
About a
Around what my copy is, I think, you know, 5, 5, 5, something like that. Yeah.
Nothing spectacular, you know. And I paid about $22.50 US for it.
Wow, that's a cheap price for that kind of a book with that kind of a
Yeah,
cover.
it's
You
kind
got a
of like
deal on that
little
sucker.
more than a half price nowadays, I would say.
I would say that's way below the
Kirby
fair
is
market of a
not-
book at that grade, at that price in this market. Yeah, you got a steal of a deal there, buddy.
But then again, time, like how long ago did I buy it? But I'm
How long ago is this? This is not a recent pickup, right? Or no?
I wouldn't say recent, but it's been at least a few months. So this,
Okay.
to me, that
Yeah,
makes
because
me
I
think
mean,
when I
it's been
see the
about
price,
yeah,
I
it's
can almost tell what dealer I probably picked this off.
yeah,
of
because it's been about a year since like
Yeah.
the whole title has just kind of really heated up.
Yeah.
So
Really heated up.
BMV's pickings have been pretty dry, and I know that Altered States doesn't get a lot of this stuff in, so
Yeah.
more than likely, most of your collection of the Fantastic Four is always coming from the Toronto Comic Book Show.
On a comic book show, and I can tell you what dealer. I know if
Yeah.
I see this price, I know it's the collector dealer guy.
yeah,
He's not bricks and mortar, and
so he's got some good stuff.
He's got some good stuff. I've already rebagged and boarded it and da-da-da. So
man, it looks so pretty. What a solid cover.
Great book, Mike. Thanks for bringing it in.
Cool.
Okay, again, another pickup from RetroWare. I picked it up the same day as I picked up the Adventure Comics 428.
Wow, I didn't realize you had this early an issue missing from your collection.
Yeah, again, of the entire original Star Wars run, Volume 1, I'm missing maybe 8 to 10. And surprisingly, yes, I was missing number 4. And this is, again, part of the original movie adaptation. I think the original movie adaptation ran the first 6 issues.
I think you're correct in saying that. And,
Yeah.
and this is a tough black cover to get, too.
Yeah, and it price tag's 25. He gave it to me for a 20, and it's quite a high grade.
It
So
looks at least VF-ish to me, like something like an 885 at least,
Yeah.
something like that we're talking.
Yeah.
Now, which for a book of this time, which the print one was huge, is
Huge.
not a great number, but
Yeah.
again, you're not talking a mid-grade. Like, I mean, I hate to say what the obvious should be, but I mean, unless you really don't care and just want a copy of the book, for something like that, from an investor's perspective,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't look at anything below an 885.
For
And
sure.
you probably want something with a 9. I mean, there's people who say, oh, 9.8 or bust. But I
No,
mean,
not-
if you're being
yeah.
realistic about it, if you get anything with a 9, you're doing
Yeah.
well if you get it for a reasonable price. And I say
Yeah.
reasonable price, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, something
Yeah.
along those lines. You should be able to pick up if you're diligent and wait and pay and wait for that price point to happen. But like I said, you got it for 20 bucks, which is like less than 15 US for at least a VF, if not higher grade copy. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, you're not going to get better anywhere else, I wouldn't think.
For sure. And as Jose has said, I mean, the print run during the late 70s and early 80s on these books was huge.
Yeah.
And they've never really gotten the love from the comic book
Well,
community.
they have. It's just a market demand thing where there's so
Yeah.
many copies still out there and so many copies in higher grades. So that,
Yeah.
again, it's a difference between rarity and scarcity. Something
Mm-hmm.
could be rare, but like I said, you have to gauge the demand for it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it comes to the old law of economics 101, supply and demand. You got too many.
Yeah.
You got too many out there, and you got a lot of people chasing them. But I mean, it's still.
Yeah.
It creates a position where you can get in there still at a reasonable price if you're not willing to pay for like a 9.8. Then
Yeah.
you can get these books in a high grade for a very reasonable amount.
Yeah, the point being, if you're going to collect Star Wars, the original series, you want to get the high grades because they're out there and they're not that expensive.
And
So
it
one,
looks so nice. And like I said, when you look at them, like, would you really want this one in a VG grade? Really?
no,
The
no.
gloss actually shines through.
Oh yeah,
the Mylar.
it's
It's
well,
insane.
I wouldn't say it's that good, but
It's
I'd say it's somewhere between an 8 and a 9 somewhere. And Sandy had it, and for $20, I'm not gonna turn it away for sure.
Definitely not when you don't have it.
Yeah. Okay, now for Mike's last segment here, we got, what's that? Is this a Golden Age goodie?
No, this is an early Silver Age
No, sir.
10-cent Blackhawk cover. And what a cover it is, too. That is one mighty fine, good-looking cover.
Fantastic.
Wow, what a pickup, Mike. And it looks to be in pretty good condition. Solid mid-grade copy?
Oh, absolute. I'd give it about a 5.5.
First of all, what issue? What's the issue number?
This is 190. Oh, wait. No, this is 159. From
Blackhawk number
April
one.
61.
Yeah, so like I said,
About
it's
a
a...
5.0. About a 5.0.
Hey man, it's a 10-cent book. It's got and like I said, it's a little staticky, but you know what? I mean, like I said, we were all, I remember as teenagers,
Yeah.
at least Paul and I were into like models and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm particularly interested in like German tanks or World War II. So it's got a nice submarine cover. Here are the Blackhawks here and like these floating mines, and this sub is coming at them. So it kind of is a cool kind of an action cover.
Yeah.
It's their own team coming at them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you
Blow
see,
them up,
I mean,
man.
it's an extreme angle, but you see the Blackhawk logo on the turret of the sub there. So
Yeah.
I mean, these are cool books. I will be featuring some cool 10-cent
Yeah,
Blackhawk
yeah.
covers in future episodes. So look out for them. Man, this is a book, like I said, that has been neglected, and it has had no market love. Basically the Rodney Dangerfield title of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I encourage our viewers to go out there and check out. I mean, there's some great monster covers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's some great good girl covers with Lady Blackhawk. There's some cool wartime covers. I mean, I featured a couple of quality
For
pre-DC
sure,
books.
yeah.
I mean, there is some good books out there. And I mean, the title gets painted just with a broad brush. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing there. There's really very few keys. But this is the run where you collect good covers, man. And this
sure,
I
yeah.
include as one of those really
Yeah.
good covers.
Yeah, so we're all out at the cons actively looking for the 10 cents or the 12 cents in high grades because they're not going to cost you an arm and a leg. They're fun to collect.
Be there and haggle because these guys are going to be dusting off the box on these titles. This is a title that's been dormant forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if there's ever a time where you're going to haggle and dicker with a dealer, it is on this title.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, and that's why I bought the cover is simply because beautiful 10-cent covers. They're cheap, and It's Black Hawk. You don't know where he's going to land as far as Spielberg is concerned. You have no idea where he's taking his story from.
But what you do have is a multi-year window where you can stock up and get the good covers before these start popping.
Yeah.
Because when the
Absolutely.
movie starts, it's going to have a rising tide floats all boats kind of situation.
It's sort of like throwing darts at a board without even bothering throwing a dart, because I'm happy with it just for the cover
These
alone.
are
It's
always
a 10
solid
center.
pickup for people compiling a kind of like a good comprehensive DC and Marvel collection. This is a title to have. It should be represented in people's collections.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And cover artist, if you don't know him that well, Dick Dillon.
Chillin' with Dick Dillon.
Chilling with Dick
go.
Dillon. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I see it, I buy it.
Great book, Mike. Thanks for bringing it in.
Cool.
Okay, so for the final episode of the night, and as usual, Jose is not going to disappoint. You're throwing 2 Golden Age goodies at us.
We got some old gold here, both
Old
boys
gold.
and girls. Yes, you mentioned it briefly at the start of our episode that at the end of the year, last year, our good friend Sandy at Retro Rare snagged a small but real good quality Golden Age collection. About 100 books, about a third of them superhero,
Yeah.
a large bulk of them funny animal, not to my taste, although he did have a nice mid-grade copy of that first Scrooge McDuck, which was very nice.
Worth quite a few bucks too.
So like there, we were both there, and we were there among the first people actually getting a peek at what he actually got, and these are 2 of my pickups.
Yeah.
So before I get in detail into these 2 books, I will say that what's actually extra uber cool and special about both of these books, these are the Canadian, the much rarer and scarcer Canadian edition of these titles.
Yeah.
So the titles being MLJ Publications for Archie and EC Comics for the weird fantasy title that I'll be featuring. What the one word I should say about Canadian editions is like, basically, long story short, back in the day, we had kind of protectionist laws made by the government in order to protect basically our magazine and newspaper publishers from their very much larger cousins down to the south, so that they could not bombard them and crowd them out of the kind of retail shelf space.
Which isn't exactly a bad idea.
Well, like I said, I mean, it was basically giving them a chance to compete and actually reach our Canadian audience, so which would have been much harder if these guys were allowed to kind of like basically crowd them out of the shelves. So what happened back then was the American publisher would contract the Canadian publisher to basically do their own Canadian version of a print. Now, from a case-by-case basis, that they usually were some constants, like the cover would probably have to be the same, but as far as page count and content, that sometimes changed case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
In other words, what you'd sometimes find happening, since most of these titles we're talking were not book-length stories, they were kind of anthology titles with 3, 4, 5-page stories. What would happen, sometimes they might get altered. In other words, you have one story less or a different story, or what might also happen is a story might be sacrificed so the Canadian publisher, to make a few extra bucks, might replace it with advertising.
Yeah, I understand.
So that means, generally speaking, and the last word to say about that, I don't have a good feel yet, because I'm very much new to the Golden Age collecting, whether from a fair market value or market demand, whether the Canadian editions are either value-wise on a par with the American edition, have a premium to, or are looked at less favorably, and therefore less. I mean, if I were to say, generally speaking, I think either held in esteem to be on a par, or maybe with the better books, maybe have a premium, because when you think about it, Canada has historically had only about 1/10 of the population as they are cousins to the neighbor.
Yeah.
So the runs would have been necessarily at, I don't want to say 1/10, but significantly less than the American run. And when you factor in maybe survival rates of about 10%.
Yeah,
so,
I would say 10, because the population's always been about 1/10.
So even though, like I said, Archie and the EC Comics were uber popular, and like at the height of their time, and their print runs were probably in the hundreds of thousands, we're talking 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 at least. You factor in 1/10 of that, and in a 10 survival rate, we're talking maybe a couple of 3,000 for any kind of issue.
Yeah.
And the Archies are particularly hard to find in higher grades.
I would agree.
So let's get into the first book, Archie. Now, is it issue 40? Because you know what? It's issue 40 for the Canadian edition. But if you look at the Grand Comics database, or Go Collect or any other sites of that. This basically is issue 41 for the American edition. So I
Yeah.
don't want to confuse our viewers. So for our purposes, issue 40, Canadian edition. Of course, this is from November, December 1949, and it's got a great Betty Cooper innuendo cover by cover artist Bob Montana.
Fantastic.
So Archie Andrews, has been America's, favorite teenager since, I don't know, time immemorial.
Yeah.
But I guess if you want to be more precise, from December of 1941. That's when he made his debut in Pep Comics issue number 22. Now, along with his pals, Jughead Jones and Moose Mason, his rival, Reggie Mantle, and the two girls that just can't decide, he can't decide between, Betty Cooper and Veronica Lodge, Archie has remained continuously in print ever since. Now, there is some debate over who actually created the character of Archie, but the 6-page story featured in Pep Comics 22 called Introducing Archie was scripted by writer Vic Bloom and penciled by Bob Montana. Now, Montana's art is simple, whimsical, and is the most subtle of ways sexy. His covers come off as being harmless and innocent, with the mere suggestion of sex within, which is quite a fitting style for the Archie character. Now, Archie has often toyed with sexuality over the decades, since when you think about it, at the very heart of the story, we have two cute girls fighting over one guy. There's bound to be a lot of sexual energy wrapped up in that.
I suppose so, yeah.
So Jose's 3 basic rules of thumb when you're looking at Archie covers are: 1, sex sells; 2, sexual innuendos sell even more; and 3, controversy, it sells the best.
Yeah.
Now, if you're unsure which books will sell, take a close look at the cover. But more importantly, read the dialogue covers and trust your gut. Even astute and experienced comic book collectors sometimes overlook Archie Comics as children's books. But those in the know understand that headlight, innuendo, good girl covers remain desirable and very much collectible in the marketplace. And these are the books that can be valued in the hundreds, if not thousands, in the higher grade.
For sure, yeah.
Now, of course, my example of that is that, did you know that Archie Comics issue number 50 is selling for something like 10 times more now than it did just 10 years ago? Now, you can thank the sudden and importance given to that book's Betty Headlights cover by Bob Montana for all of that. Now, personally, I'd never put the likes of Bob Montana or someone like Dan DeCarlo as classic good girl artists, but that is exactly what they've become as this search for undiscovered good girl covers intensifies.
Yeah.
So, risque, politically incorrect, and innuendo are the magic words for good girl comic book art collectors, and this cover here, issue number 40, delivers. The trick, of course, is just finding a copy, but I'm telling you, they are out there. The 49th Overstreet price picks for this book are $82, $123, $256, $428, and $600 US in the 4, 6, 8, 9, and 9.2 grade splits. Good looking copy for what I would say is about, I don't know, a VG plus copy.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Main flaw being is that the centerfold is detached.
Ooh,
Okay,
but
yeah.
it's there.
But it's there. It's
Yeah.
just attached. I would prefer a centerfold attached to no cover detached. I'm going to
Yeah.
have something detached, but I can live with that. I paid not the insignificant sum of $200 Canadian, which was about $140 US for this book. And like I said, I mean, at a 4, it's 82. But again, that's the Overstreet price guide. I think the fair market value is much closer to the $150 mark than the basically just under $100 mark.
Nice.
So I'm in good with this book. The second book, of course, this is probably one of my favorite snacks recently. Again, the Canadian edition from 1950. This is Weird Fantasy issue number 14. This is a classic UFO nuclear blast cover by Al Feldstein. Now,
Wow.
the atomic age began officially on June the 16th of 1945. It was, of course, on that day that, as a result of the wartime Manhattan Project, the first nuclear bomb was detonated at the Trinity Nuclear Test Site in New Mexico. Of course, nothing would be the same after that. not even comic books. Generally speaking, Golden Age Atomic Explosion covers are, relatively speaking, rare. This scarcity has made them highly collectible. That, joined to the fact that they just simply look awesome. And yes, I realize that it's hard to romanticize a nuclear winter, but they just do. I guess all of which roundabout brings us back to this issue, number 14 of Weird Fantasy, a dark fantasy science fiction anthology comic that was a part of the EC Comics line in the early 1950s. Over a 4-year span, Weird Fantasy ran for a total of 22 issues, ending with the November-December 1953 issue. A futuristic atomic explosion perfectly fits the sci-fi theme of this publication. Hence, of course, this cover depicting large-eared, cone-headed, googly-eyed aliens inside a UFO orbiting from Earth, watching a mushroom cloud rising, and the cover heralding the incredible events leading up to the cosmic ray bomb explosion. Gee, that's great Cold War fun, kids. Second cover!
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there is a relatively plentiful 56 copies of this issue in the census. But this here, of course, is the much scarcer and rarer Canadian edition.
Yeah.
EC Comics is well known for their very confusing approach to numbering their series. Weird Fantasy Comics started their numbering at issues 13 through 17, then reverted back to issue number 6. Now this means that there are 2 different issues numbered 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17.
Oh, man.
Now the way to identify them, if you're kind of looking at them, is that numbers 13 through 17 were published from 1950 to 51, while the second 13 through 17 were published from 52 to 53. You have to open up the book to the cover and look at the Indices publishing date to verify whether it's the first ones or the second ones. Now, believe it or not, prior to issue number 13, the title was called A Moon, a Girl Romance.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, so the 49th Overstreet price breaks for this issue 14 are $228, $342, $912, $1,456, and $2,000 US in the 4, 6, 8, 9, and 9.2 grade splits. Again, a very good looking copy. Actually, Uncle Sandy there actually rated higher than me. I gave it a conservative 4.5, and he thought it was all day long, at least a very good find. I paid $300, which is not an insignificant amount of money, but for what it is, I mean, I still relatively got a good deal because of the current exchange rates. 300 Canadian is barely about $210 US. Out of 4, it's saying 228. And this is, I think, higher than a 4. It's at least a 4 or 5, possibly a 5. I will obviously get this pressed and send it in to get CGC after my rotation comes back.
Definitely a slabbing candidate, that is certain.
It's going to get its ticket punched, and that is that.
Beauty.
Well, that's fantastic. Albeit very long-winded. And I can't think of any better way to end the episode tonight than those 2 Golden Age goodies, Jose, and as usual, you didn't disappoint.
Thank you very much. These were great snacks. Ending off a very good year for me myself. Actually, I picked up one bigger book, which we will be discussing.
Yeah. So, guys, as usual, if you like what you saw, leave the comments. We will respond. Sometimes it takes us a week or 2, but we always respond. And, we will see you guys next time.
Special guest Mike. Yes.
What year is it from?
August 37.
That's nice.
This is pre-war.
And it's like, it started out as New Adventure, and then the title eventually changed. They dropped the new and became Adventure Comics.
Nice.
There's some rubbing where the color is not fully saturated right above the banner there. But outside of that, the rest of the book is really good.
Nice 181, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great book.